I'm Nick Bester, I'm a running coach and a multiple 220 marathoner, hopefully soon to be a sub 220 marathoner. I'm dying to introduce myself with that, but hey, I've tried 6 times and attempt number 7 is coming up. Berlin Marathon is here and those race nerves are real. They're on me at the moment. Do you know what? I love it. I embrace it. I think there's a lot you can do with those pre-race nerves and I hope that they never ever go away. I think when those race nerves go away and I don't have that adrenaline and buzz to get out there and give it my best shot, then I know it doesn't mean as much to me anymore. So yeah, it's a weird one because I know in the marathon when you get to 35, 36, 37, 38 Ks in the race, those demons are screaming at you to slow down, and often you ask yourself the question, you're like, why are you doing this again and again and again? But here I am sitting just a couple of days away from the race and I can't wait to get out there. I just want to be on that start line. And hopefully, that's a sign that I'm ready. I know when I feel like just being in the race is often a good sign that, I've put in the work and, I'm feeling as confident as I can going into this with respecting the marathon. So today's video is all about, first of all, what I do in race week and hopefully some tips and points that you can pick up with what you should be focusing on in race week. And then secondly, my strategy going into Berlin, how we finally going to crack the sub 220. I'll look at some of my past attempts, think out aloud, and come up with a strategy that I think will give myself the best possible chance. But first of all, what to focus on and what I ideally focus on in race week is these 5 things. So first of all, sleep. Good sleep. Sleep is the best form of recovery. And ideally, you're looking to get an extra hour sleep in race week. You want to restore all that energy you possibly have in your body. And I always aim to get around 8 to 9 hours in race week. Obviously, easier said than done when you've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So at the moment, I'm probably getting about 7 to 8.5, let's say. Last night, a little bit less. But hey, life happens sometimes. But ultimately, it's all about giving yourself the chance. And I know, in race week, often the night before you don't sleep very well. So it's important to get good rest in the build up. And often the night before is the more important one. So yeah, I'll be taking my pillow with me to Berlin. My pillow goes everywhere with me. That's like a guaranteed way to make sure that I sleep well. But that rest is crucial. And I think already my mind's drifting to Berlin, different scenarios and stuff like that. I'm getting adrenaline in the night. And if that's happening to you in race week, it's completely normal. I think it's all about just giving yourself the best possible chance. So I'm lying in bed for 8.5 to 9 hours. Whether I sleep for that time or not, I can't always guarantee, but it's all about giving yourself the best possible chance. And then point number 2 is to reduce volume and intensity significantly in race week. The taper for me comes around 10 days out or so. 2 weeks before the race, I usually drop the volume to around 70% of what I usually would do. So that's 70% in total mileage and in workout volume. And in race week, it's all about keeping the rhythm and flow there. So I don't like stopping running completely. I feel like sometimes it just makes me tighten up and a bit stiffer, but I reduce it a lot. So to give you an idea, I'll probably line up before the race with about 40 to 50 kilometers for the week. With the race, that'll bring me to 90 kilometers or so. My usual volume this block has been around 150. So basically what you want to think is like winding up a spring. You've worked so hard and the spring is coiling up and it's just ready to explode, and you need to be hungry come that start line. A mistake I've made with this in the past is that I've gotten a little bit lethargic. So I think it's important to keep the mindset in taper that you want to be smashing that hard training, but you're almost starving yourself. So keep that mindset. Don't relax and, get used to the taper life. Rather think, I really want to go, but I'm not allowing myself to. So come race day, we bloodthirsty to go out and give it our best shot. The third thing I do in race week is reduce my calorie intake slightly in the first half of the week and then increase my calorie intake and carbs in the second half of the week. So it's really important to not underfuel. You still need a significant amount of calories, but because you're doing less training than you usually would, you probably don't need as much calories as you would in the high weeks. So yeah, like I said, be careful not to underfuel and don't mess with things too much, but ever so slightly reduce calories in the first half. And then I find that increased calories and increased carbs really gives you that good feeling at the start of the race. You feel powerful, energized, and ready to go. And good carbs are things like sweet potato, whole wheat pasta, brown rice. So sort of first half of the week, I'll have a combination of, protein and slightly less carbs. And then second half of the week, carbs, get that fuel in. Then the fourth thing I do in race week is like a lot of light stretching, foam rolling, mobility, core work, maybe a light sports massage early on in the week. So basically you want to just keep your body mobile. You don't want to get static. You don't want to sit at a desk for too long and tighten up, so on and so forth. So you also don't want to do anything too intense. You don't want to do like a massive ab workout a couple of days before, or go for a sports massage where someone gets deep into your muscles a few days before and jeopardize your race. It's all just about, staying loose, staying mobile. So maybe some mobility routines. Give yourself that 10 to 20 minutes a day in race week, especially, to just stay loose and go through your routine to get into that zone. And then point number 5 in race week that I focus on is trying to get on the front foot for the week. So life can be crazy. And I think, what I've realized from previous marathon attempts, that often you can get to that start line just mentally fatigued, and marathons take so much out of you mentally, especially when the margins are so close, that you need every little bit of mental energy and reserve you can get. So in this case, I got through all my training peaks, training plans last week for my athletes. I did as much as I could last week. And then I've tried to sort of smash things out in the first half of this week, so I can go into the weekend with more of a clear mindset, let's say. I think in the past, I've also made the mistake of, trying to reply to everyone, be on my phone, and I've got to that start line and I've almost felt like mentally not there, just tired in a way. So this race especially, I'm really going to try and make a conscious effort to put my phone away as much as possible and really just focus on the sub 220 and the task at hand, and all of that stuff can come later. Okay, now time for my race strategy. So let me touch base on previous attempts first, and then from there I'll tell you what my plan is. This is my 7th attempt at a sub 220. So my first attempt was London Marathon 2021. Now this was a bit of an impromptu attempt. This was sort of my ego taking over, thinking, hey, I can crack sub 220. But sometimes, weird things happen in running, and you've got to give yourself a go. So I wasn't miles off heading into London. So I did Cheshire Elite Marathon. I really wanted to break sub 225, and I ran 224.04. So that really exceeded my expectations, and I got excited, and I thought 224, 220, it's not too dissimilar. Like that's the natural progression. And yeah, I'm still trying to crack that 220. But anyways, in London, I sort of made a decision just before the race that I was going to go for sub 220, and I wasn't at 100% health leading in like a few days before. And in a marathon, you get exposed so much. There's no hiding, especially in London, where the first half's a little bit quicker than the second half. So went through halfway in 69.50, not feeling comfortable at all, mentally tough, trying to convince myself that actually this isn't too bad. And I fell off the pack, and that was the worst place I've ever been in any marathon ever in my life. I finished, I think, in 2:33. So yeah, missed it by miles, and I think I learned a lot from that race. And one thing I would say is that race went so badly, but the training I did for that race transformed my running in such a way that a lot of PBs followed after that race. So, I was disheartened with the result at the time, and it was a hard one to take. But if ever that happens to you, don't underestimate, like, the work you put into a training block often transforms your running for future results. The next race was Rotterdam in 2022. So really went through halfway. I'm feeling nice and strong. And then sort of Jake Smith, a professional athlete, was on the side of the road. He's an NN, a Nike-sponsored runner. He was meant to do Berlin Marathon, but I see he's picked up a niggle and isn't doing it, unfortunately. But anyways, he was pacing the elite runners. He then jumped in and paced our sub-elite group. I was sort of like, elite struck in a way that I was like, this is freaking awesome. Is this really happening? Getting paced by an NN pro, at Rotterdam Marathon. And it was amazing. And, unfortunately, I'm probably like 20 kilograms heavier than him, so I don't know how much wind assistance he was doing in the front, but the pacing was pretty metronomic. And what I found is that it was probably a little bit too quick for me by about a second. And when the margins are that tight, it adds up. So yeah, he sort of paced, I think, till around from about, just before halfway, till around 30 Ks. At that point, I was on track for around a 2:18 marathon or so. And then the last 12, I struggled. As soon as he dropped off, the morale dropped. I was maybe, a bit over my threshold too soon. And I finished in 2:20 and 59 seconds. So really big PB and nice confidence booster that I actually can break 2:20. Then fast forward 6 months later to Berlin Marathon 2022. This was a weird one because I didn't feel like I was in the best shape of my life. I had a few rocky weeks in the build up to that. I went out to South Africa for Comrades Marathon and, got thrown off my game and routine a little bit. But nonetheless, I thought, let me conserve energy. Most of my PBs have been off negative splits, and maybe I can put in a big second half. So went through halfway in 70:16, so quite a bit slower and on track for 2:20:32. So having to put in quite a big negative split. And I felt so strong at around halfway. The pack I was with slowed down till about 25k, so we lost even more time than that. So I probably had to make up about a minute if I was realistically going to break 220, but I felt really amazing. At that stage, I was about 100th place at Berlin Marathon, and I thought, now's the time to go. Like, I'm feeling strong, like, let's go for it. And for the next 17Ks, I just gave it absolutely all I could. I didn't write the split times down on my arms, but I was overtaking a lot of people, and I thought, today's the day. Like, I can't feel this good and not break 220. So I really believed, and the only time I realized that I wasn't going to break 220 was when I ran under Brandenburg Gate with 352 meters to go, and I worked out I could do it in something like 60 seconds if I really sprinted. So I knew at that stage it was impossible. I gave it my absolute all. I finished in 220 and 8 seconds. Which at the time was a 51-second PB, but as you can imagine, it was like the most bittersweet moment. It was like some sort of sick joke. I, trained so hard for the sub 220, and coming in 8 seconds over was like such a tough one for me to take. But probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because it lit a firecracker inside of me that I've taken forward with my training and my work ethics. And forwards we try and move. So anyways, on to Seville the following year. I was about to have my second child just after, so I thought I'm looking for an earlier one in the year. Seville actually worked out quite nicely. Went through halfway in 68 minutes, so the fastest split in all my marathons. So tracking for a 2:16 marathon, really believing at halfway, like, this, I can double this, no worries. But once again, reality smacked me in the face pretty early on, probably at around 28Ks. And it was about 14Ks or so of just hanging in with all I've got. I finished in 2:21:27, I think. So still very respectable, but it was a tough one to take from the point of view that I had sub 220 within my grasp once again, and it just went away from me. Finished that race, went to the medical tent for the first time ever actually after a race, but came to life shortly after, and forwards we moved. On to Berlin 2023, and I decided, you know what? I don't want to leave too much out there. Let me go through halfway a little bit quicker than the year before, and then try and do exactly what I did in the second half. So went through halfway in around 69:40ish or so, which was the plan. Feeling relatively strong. Then with about 10Ks to go, thinking I've got this in the bag. Finally, it's here. With about 8Ks to go, tracking for around 2:18:50 or so. Literally, guys, 8Ks left in the marathon, and my dream would have come true. And then, I sort of did the maths. Your brain's not that sharp at that stage of the race, but I thought, you know what, I can lose sort of 6-7 seconds a K from here on in and still make a sub 220. But I lost control of my pacing, hit a wall, and unfortunately I was losing 20 to 30 seconds a K from that point onwards. And there's just not much you can do when that happens. So finished in 2:22:12. Onto Manchester Marathon earlier this year. I thought, you know what, I kind of didn't have the smoothest block from the point of view that I moved houses just before. So 2 weeks before I moved into the house that I am now, there's lots of stairs, moving with a 3-year-old, 1-year-old, lots of stuff. It's never ideal. You've got to make sacrifices when the margins are tight, and you need to shoot the lights out. But anyways, enough with the excuses. I think that's the biggest thing I learned from that, was that, trying to smash the lights out, like, you need to really focus and not move house pretty much 2 weeks before. So went through halfway just over 70, so try to replicate Berlin 2022 when I ran my best. And in the second half, the magic just didn't happen for me. It was, a lot of solo running, and I finished in 2:22:40. So the slowest of my last 5 was my last one, but at the same time, I knew that I needed to do something different, and I needed to really try and work harder and smarter than ever before. And I really believe I've done that this time. I know I'm in way better shape than Berlin Marathon 2023, and I'm in way better shape than my last 2 attempts. And so here's my strategy for this race. So I really want to try and average 3:18 a K for as long as possible. In order to break 220, you need to average 3:19. I averaged 3:19 when I ran 2:20:08. So let's not take any chances. Let's try go 1 second a K quicker. 3:18 a K from the start. That'll pretty much put me through halfway in 69:40ish. I don't want to go through any faster than that. I can't get caught up into the competition and stuff like that. I really would love to be in a group. It looks like conditions are pretty good. It's getting a bit cooler. It could be a bit windy. And the wind it's not going to be too windy, but there's a bit of a breeze from the west side. And you sort of run into the wind up until the 29K mark, and then you turn, and then you go with the wind up until about the 40K mark. So ideally I really want to be with people and with a pack working together. So if there's a group that goes to an around 69-40ish, 69-50ish, and we're able to stick together for as long as possible, and a few all the way up until the 29k mark, that would be incredible. That would be my dream race. But at the same time, I think in the past I've made the mistake of trying to stay with groups and people rather than always running my own race. And ultimately, you know, I run best when I run my own race. So that's sort of the plan, but I'll take the conditions as they come on the day. So 318k and just hold it for as long as possible. Okay, now onto what sub 220 would mean to me. I don't even want to imagine, I don't even want to imagine how, you know what, I've thought about this for the last 3 years, and like, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I always keep saying like sub 220 is the cherry on the cake. It's the journey is what it's all about. So sub 220 is the destination, but it's all about, you know, enjoying the journey and the successes that come with the journey. So, you know what, to me, I think sub 220 would prove to me that I can do almost anything I set my mind to, because it was beyond my wildest dreams for a long time. But at the same time, I think, you know, the success is that it's taught me to work so hard, and all the goodness that has come from it. Like, maybe the biggest blessing is that I haven't broken 220, because it's just kept me motivated to go and go and go, not just in running, but in sort of everything I do in life. So, you know what, I think the success is this. It's, you know, the YouTube community that we've created, and just helping people improve. You know, the success is Best Athletics, you know, starting Best Athletics 4 years ago, and there's currently over 600 members. You know, the app's really taking off in the hands of hundreds of runners. That, you know, the fact that Adidas is supporting me and the club, like that sort of stuff is a success. Sub 220 is just the cherry on the cake. But having said that, I think, you know what, I need to line up bloodthirsty to break that 220, because if I don't, and if there's any bit of doubt, then when the going gets tough, that will show. So in order for me to really get the most out of this marathon, and this sounds like a bit of a crazy thing that I do, but it's almost like a mind trick, just to make sure that you're pushing and getting every little ounce of you that you possibly can. So I always sort of trick my mind, and I think, you know, what means most to me is my family. And at that start of the start line, I say, unless I break 220, then I'm not able to see my family. Now, I know that sounds completely brutal and ruthless, but at the same time, it's all it is it's a mind trick. So I really, you know, get myself to try and believe that, and that way it's like you're fighting with absolutely every single bit you've got. Because I've trained really well, you know, conditions are looking good. It's now is a better chance than ever, but I know that unless I give absolutely everything I have, then, you know, there's a chance that we'll run a 220 low, and we've done that enough times. We want to go one better this time. Okay, so as far as the filming goes en route, if anyone's watching this and knows of any supporters out there, please can you film in landscape for the YouTube video. But I do have one of my best mates from South Africa coming over, Mikey. He's going to be giving Instagram updates, and he was actually there in 2022 when I ran my PB in 220.08. So he's like my good luck charm. So he'll be en route, busy giving support and filming at the same time. And then I've also got Best Athletics OGs and really good friends. Rachel and Mikey are coming along too. And yeah, once again, when they supported the races, I've always run my best. So it's been hugely motivating knowing that they're coming along to Berlin, because I'm kind of like, if they're coming all that way, you know, to support me and others, but I really need to train hard and, you know, put on my best possible performance. And then again, there's 50 Best Athletics runners that are doing it, so huge motivation in that. We've got a big team going over, and it's the 50th Berlin edition, so, you know, the stars are aligning. It's just to go out and execute. But yeah, I always said, you know what, I filmed a lot of races with a head cam, and this one I'm going to make a deal with you. Okay, so I'm not starting with my head cam at all. I'm going to see my mate Mikey with 5Ks to go, and if I'm 15 seconds under sub 220 or 15 seconds over, and I'm not going to do it, but let's not think like that. Any one of those scenarios, then I'm going to take the head cam and you're going to run the last 5Ks with me. But if the margins are tight and it's going to come down to, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, then I'm ditching the camera and I'm not taking it. And if I think about, like, if I am 15 seconds under and I take that camera, I actually think in a way it's going to help me. It's going to motivate me. I know when I put that cap on with that camera, you guys are with me. Like, this is the last 5Ks. And give it absolutely bloody everything you've got type thing. So if anything, I think it's going to motivate me and make me run faster. But if it's going to cause me to lose a few seconds trying to get it, then I'm scrapping that and it's focusing on eyes on the prize. Okay, now I've got 2 questions for you. You really need to help me with this decision. So originally I was going to race in the Pro Evo. Remember, just to remind you, I've done one 5K in these. It was 28 degrees and I ran 14:46. So probably my best performance yet. This weighs 138 grams. But Adidas have literally just sent me a pair of the Pro 4s. This is brand new out the box. It looks like an unbelievable shoe. This weighs 200 grams, but at the same time, like, there's so much motivation. It's fresh. It's just dropped. So between these 2 shoes, I'm a little bit undecided. Let me know whether I should go for the Pro Evo or whether I should go for the Pro 4 on this occasion. And then secondly, as always, please feel free to predict my time. Do you know what? As we know, I've trained as well as I could have this block. I've given it absolutely everything I can, but the margins are so close that, you know, almost everything needs to click. So once again, I promise you it won't mess with my head. Feel free to predict my time and we can go back and look at it. But yeah, apart from that, I just want to say a massive thank you to the support. You know what? I think in the past, having gotten so close and then moving a little bit backwards, self-doubt has crept in a little bit, and that's never really happened to me ever before. I think when I put my mind to something, I've always got it in the past. So, you know, it's a weird one, shooting for the absolute moon and getting so close every time, but not quite there. So you know what, I just want to thank you so much for installing that belief in me and keeping me hungry and motivated. All that's left to do is get a pre-race DEXA scan. So I'm going to get a scan that'll show my body composition. I won't look too much into it before the race, but I like looking at it after the race. After all my big marathon full sends, I go for a scan just so that I can compare if it's okay, cool, at my best performance, this was my weight, this was my body fat percentage, this was my bone density, my muscle mass, so on and so forth. And then lastly, I'm going to get the race cut. So my number is 121. I'm not going to get that shaved in my head this time, but what I will get is 3 racing stripes here and the Adidas logo here. And one more final deal that I'll make with you is that if I break sub 220, I will get it tattooed on my quad, sub with the B logo, and then 220 on the other leg. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's focus fully, eyes on the prize. Thanks once again for the support. So time to just get into my own world. I know for me to stand a chance, I really need to be 110% focused, and that I will be. I've got shivers, I've got goosebumps. Boom shakalaka, we're coming for you.